The Public Health and Safety Committee for August the 12th, 2019. I'm Councilwoman Ortiz. I am the chair, and I will let my other two partners introduce themselves.
Councilwoman Hiller, District 1.
Aaron Mays, District 7.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to approve the June 24th minutes.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a comment. Sure. I thought they were about the best minutes I've ever read, so I want to give you kudos, and if you had them briefed beforehand, fine. I did also note that there were a number of assignments. They were all related to the camping ordinance and homelessness, but they were very clear about follow-ups as well, and some for today, but I assume maybe at our following meeting will be one on homelessness, but I just wanted to compliment the job.
Good. Job well done. Okay, all those in favor, please raise your right hand. Okay. Next, I did want to say we were going to talk about our property maintenance code division at this meeting because I know some people had wondered and thought about that. And I think that'll also give us enough time to kind of see where we're at with the news of the shelter or of the mission possibly closing down. Not that that has to do, I mean, the mission is a part of it, but not a big part of it. But I think that would give us time to kind of gather our thoughts, because I think if that does happen, we're going to have a lot of people out there, a lot more than what we have. So I hopefully council members, committee members would be able to take a, give Sergeant Clam a call and talk to him. That's what I'm going to do, to kind of see what's out there and get a feel before our next meeting. But our next meeting will be that.
I would note that there were just a number of issues raised and various people tasked with researching and providing some feedback. And it also indicated that we would ask the homeless task force to come.
Right.
And I thought that asking them to read those minutes and respond to the issues that were raised as well would be really helpful.
Beneficial.
And I know that we've just been typically doing that follow-up quarterly, so next month would be still right on with June, so it was fine.
Yep. And I don't know where the homeless task force is at, because there's several of them there, and I know they're going in a different direction. I know they have another direction to go with Sasha, you might help me with that. With the
Continuum of Care, which is the program that our large grant comes through from HUD to fund Shelter Plus Care. The application period for that just kicked off, so the Homeless Task Force, at least the executive committee, is laser focused on that application right now, and you all know why. Brings $1.6 million to the community, to the city that we administer for Shelter Plus Care, but then it also funds Community Action's Tanglewood facility. So yes, they are very busy with that, but I'm happy to request their attendance, or maybe the chair and some of the executive members could attend the next meeting and ask them to review your minutes if you'd like, whatever you'd like us to do.
When this whole issue started, I wasn't on the committee at that point, but they really were the ones who took the lead, as I understand it, to say, hang on, let's see what we can do as a community to address these issues. So it took a lot of leadership and responsibility for that, and really there were some issues that, like, are we attracting a lot of people from out of town? How many, and how's that going? And some things like that are really crucial, I would think, both to the missions issues as well as to ours. You know, and then there was a suggestion that there be campgrounds with facilities, but in effect, the mission is serving that need right now because people can go in there and take showers, as I understand it, and some things like that from the tent city. And so they're so interrelated.
Right. Well, and they have at least 70 different organizations that help them. I've been to some of those meetings.
Okay.
And they do play a crucial part, but I don't know how much of a part they want to play. So I'm
Yeah,
that's why I
I think we need
think
to
we
know.
said, let's just wait and see. Okay, let's go ahead and get started with number 3. You have anything, Mr. Mays, you want to
Nope.
add before we get started? Okay, overview of the property maintenance code, and if you'll identify yourself and who you are and who
Yes,
you work
ma'am.
for.
Sasha Hahn, I'm the Director of Neighborhood Relations for the City of Topeka. I'm going to absolutely have your subject matter expert, Mike Haugen, do the presentation for you. He's going to give you guys an overview of our operations and the division, kind of what all they do and how they do it, as briefly as we could in this time period. Hopefully, that'll answer a bunch of questions, but I would ask the committee respectfully that staff's desire by the outcome of this meeting would be to have a list of concerns or a list forthcoming very soon for us to be focused on. I want to come as prepared as we can to these meetings for you all. And if we could get those areas of concerns, then I could work with the chair and we could prioritize them and we could come prepared to do work with you. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mike Haugen. You all know Mike, but introduce yourself.
Well, hi. As you know, I am Mike Haugen. So I figured I'd give a brief rundown of our unit. Start with our chain of command, which obviously starts with the city manager. But what we have is we have 15 people that work within our unit. We have an admin supervisor, an office assistant that works for her, that works at front desk, a field supervisor who just took over as field supervisor, probably in March, and that was really important for us to have somebody out in the field with the inspectors, because before that it was me, and I'm at meetings like this, and so I wasn't doing the inspectors justice being here when they need me out in the field. And we have 8 inspectors, and then we have a special structures unit supervisor who also handles our software programming, and she has one special structures unit inspector under her, and he does the demolitions. And then we have 2 abatement crew members, and that's it. We got just 2 guys that do our abatement along with the jail inmate crew. But that's what consists of our unit. This is a map of our unit. If you can look at the areas, we're down 2 inspectors right now. So instead of 8, we got 6. And just by coincidence, the 2 that got vacated within the last week and a half are the 2 that are on the south end of the city. I will have the top 4 of the 4 closest inspectors and the field inspector filling into those areas while we're down and we start the process of rehiring. But you can see that's a big chunk of the city that's flat out vacant without an inspector. But we can't turn around and just regroup those 6 into that territory because you got all the GIS mapping and all the things that go on like that. But if you look at the areas, you can see that there are differences in sizes. And so the areas that are more attention have smaller areas for the inspectors. Out on the southwest side, they're from Burlingame and even Topeka Boulevard west of the city limits. So they're really big areas, and they end up with a whole lot more windshield time than the ones that are central or east. So it all evens out, and by the end of the year, they're all within 100 or 200 cases of each other by the end of the year. So you don't see anybody that's got it easy. You know, they're all pulling their own weight and they're all sharing with one another. And my west side inspectors are requesting to go to the east side when east side are opening up. They like because you actually work closer to another inspector. When you're out southwest, you're by yourself. So they got a feeling of being alone out there. Where they work over on the east side, there's another inspector within a few feet of them, and they got a partner.
Plus, they got all of us.
Yeah.
Mike,
Same.
Yes.
the 2 that are vacant, can you kind of give me the perimeter of that?
Sure. So you got Topeka Boulevard west of the city limits, 21st Street south of the city limits. And the other one's Topeka Boulevard east of the city limits, 29th Street south of the city limits.
Can you say that for me one more time? Thank you.
29th Street south of the city limits and Topeka Boulevard east of the city limits.
Okay.
And then, as you all know, we operate under the IPMC, the International Property Maintenance Code, is adopted by the city of Topeka. We're complaint and survey driven. Reactionary, we respond to telephone calls, see, click, fix, email complaints with a goal of 48 hours by inspecting the properties that people notify us about to determine their violations. That consists of 34% of our cases. See-Click Fix is really adding to our caseload. Just this weekend, those 2 vacant areas, when we came in today, there was 25 See-Click Fixes in those 2 areas alone that came in over the weekend. You can imagine with the windshield time on those 2 areas, how long that's going to take to follow up on just those See-Click Fix cases. So it's a good thing. We love See-Click Fix. We think it's a great tool, but it is really putting a lot of caseload upon our inspectors, which is, yes, it's mixed. It's good and it's bad because they're busier. And then we're also proactive with survey and monitoring properties for compliance, and that's 66% of our cases. When violations are found, we notify the property owners through the legal written process that y'all adopted at the first of the year. We have to pay attention to the right of entry onto property. It's very limited. We have to have permission to either be on the person's property. We pay attention to the Fourth Amendment, which is very strict. We want to make sure not to get the city in any trouble. And unless the case outweighs the public interest, safety and health and welfare, we make sure to stay off the property. We do use neighbors' property. If a neighbor will allow us on the property, we'll utilize that, but a lot of it is from public access. When I first started, when we were using neighbors' properties, we were requiring them to sign a waiver. And that was kind of intimidating for the neighbor to have to sign this waiver form. And I was looking at that just going, why are we trying to intimidate a neighbor out of cooperating? And you don't need the neighbor's permission to open a case. So we don't require a waiver form on a neighbor's property, but we do require a waiver form when we go onto a person's private property. When we go and do the inspection, we ask them to sign a waiver for it because it's basically a search. We don't want them to come back later and say that we forced our way into the property. The basic process for a case is we receive the complaint, we go out and inspect and document it. The violation notice is sent to the property owner. We send it certified mail and also first-class mail. The first-class mail is not required by code, but we've elected in policy to put it in there. And the reason that we did that is people elect not to sign for their certified mail. They don't want to get it. But if they get their first-class mail, it doesn't come back to us. But if the first-class mail comes back to us, then we know that they probably didn't get served if both of them come back to us. So then we can take the next step of getting a proper notification. We give them a reasonable time to comply. Posting is sometimes required if those both come back to us and we realize that we didn't notify the owner from first class and certified mail. Then we re-inspect for compliance after the time frame's up. We obtain a warrant, and then we go and we abate that property. We bill the property owner after that. Violation categories include sanitation cases, weeds, inoperable vehicles, graffiti, housing, and unsafe structures. When we talk about sanitation cases, we're talking about tires, trash debris, brush piles, upholstered furniture, appliances, scrap lumber, scrap auto parts, stagnant water in pools, etc., plumbing fixtures laying around in cardboard boxes, just to name some of the things. Those are the top things that we cite for. We also do rodent harborage, which is any condition which provides harborage for rats, mice, snakes, or other vermin, and any condition which would be unsightly or not intended for weather-tight or outdoor conditions, and any condition which is a public safety hazard. Some sanitation examples. These are what we go out and we deal with weekly. It'll be amazing that can show up sometimes in a matter of days. Sometimes it's been there for a long time. Other times you turn a corner and go, where did it come from? More sanitation issues. We have people that collect tires. We have no idea why they collect tires, but they collect tires and fill their entire backyard. We don't even know they're filling their backyard till a neighbor calls us and says, I can't go outside because of the mosquitoes. Can we use your backyard? We go to the backyard, we look over the fence, and that's what we find. And we don't have an answer. We ask them, why are you collecting the tires? And I'm going to use them. I don't know what you're going to use 1,000 tires for, but they're collecting 1,000 tires. Stagnant water is a mosquito breeding ground. We deal with these with the pools. Just where water piles up as examples in the photos. And what we find under the harborage, I only have pictures of snakes because the rats and the mice are too fast to get the pictures taken of. But we lit these things up, and they had rats and the snakes and the the mice take off from us, but we find snakes all the time out there. We also frequently deal with our hoarding on the exterior property, and I don't know if this is becoming worse and worse, but I know that we're serving more and more warrants, and we're using more and more roll-offs. We're using 80 roll-offs or more, and I'm told that before I came here, they might have used 6 in a year. And
We're up to 80?
yeah.
Wow.
Just to give you an example, we're over at 550 warrants for 2019. So I don't know if there's more harborage of this stuff, or if we're inspecting it better and getting more violations cited, but it doesn't seem to be coming to an end. When you're serving 500 and some odd warrants in an 8-month period, that is a lot. We do the weeds and grass, and annual grasses, plants, and vegetation for weeds that are over 12 inches in height. It doesn't include trees and shrubs or cultivated flowers or gardens. We've made sure to include alleys, easement, right-of-ways, and fence lines. Those are things that weren't being cited when I first started here. They were only citing basically the front yard, or if the backyard was super obvious. And then when I got here, I said, no, what's good enough isn't good enough. It's going to be the entire property. First year, a lot of phone calls of people complaining about that, saying this isn't fair because for 10 years I've been mowing my front yard and you've been closing the cases. So we worked with them. They don't complain anymore. They understand what the rules are. Ideally, I know that there's a debate right now, or there's been, over the trees and the volunteer trees. We're going off of what the last legal advisor interpreted it. I don't know if that's set in stone. Here's what the truth is. I don't have the staff to address the volunteer trees. We're 180 cases behind on mowing right now. They're mowing the July 12th houses right now that should have been mowed July 12th. They're mowing them today. That's how far we are behind on weed cases. So if we actually went even further than doing the alleys, the easements, making sure the backyards are done, I don't have the staff to mow. I don't have the staff to address that tree line. So that's something that we seriously have to talk about. If we want to take another step, we have to address that by providing the manpower and the resources to actually get those things cut. We provide 1 written notice per year. I know that we've talked about that. I did bring you a copy. If you want a letter, I can give it to you now, or a letter later.
I asked Mike, I had some properties that haven't been mowed, and I wanted to see the letter, so I asked him to bring us a copy.
Okay.
So we would know, because so many times I get complaints of, well, I only received 1 letter, and it's my understanding that we send out 1 letter and it states we will not send out another letter if they
Right at
violate.
the bottom,
Yeah, right at the bottom. Yeah.
the big
Okay.
print.
This is how a lot of people go. They don't mow their lawn or take care of their property until we send them the first notice. So then they take care of it, and if we waited and send them a second letter, they're going to wait until they receive their second letter.
Right.
So, and that's intentional. There's, I don't want to maintain the property, and I'm not going to maintain it until they make me.
Till I have to.
So that notice is there, and that's what state law has in it as well. It says send one notice. You could send more if you wanted to, but I don't find that would be a smart way to do it, because I know for a fact that they would wait until they receive their second letter and their third letter. And if after their first written notice, if we go out there and your grass exceeds 12 inches, we immediately contact the mow crew. If the mow crew gets out there and you've mowed it, it's $106.65 for us to go that far into the case. If the mow crew gets out there and they have to mow it, it'll be about $270, unless your property's even bigger, it could go higher. But so you're automatically going to get fined on your second one if you allow it to go over 12 inches. And I think that's important, because if not, they're letting it go over 12 inches. And over the years since I've been there, I got a lot of people that were calling and arguing it. I'm not getting anybody calling and arguing it anymore and saying I didn't know or I should have known. And this year for 2019, I sent out a postcard to every 2018 violator. And I said, look, you were cited, why don't you be a team player with us? Let's work together to make the city a better place, and let's keep our properties maintained so we don't have to come out to your property. So every single person that got cited in 2018 was notified that in 2019 we're still doing this, and please don't get cited. It sure didn't slow it down, because we are still rocking and rolling, citing a lot of weeds.
Have you looked at your results on that particular mailing?
No, and I don't know because I sent it to everybody, so I'm going to have
Sure.
to go back in and look at, see how many non-repeat, but I would have to go
Yeah.
back year after year after year to see if it changed. I probably received 5 phone calls from people that thought they didn't appreciate the card, but then I ran into a bunch of people that said, thank you. They go, I appreciate it. I appreciate the reminder. I own a bunch of rental property and I own vacant land and I forget it. So they were appreciative of it. And I really tried with the card to be team-oriented as a city and just I was just trying to come up with a solution. And then additionally, probably 2 years ago, maybe 3, we started putting lime green utility markers out anytime we cited a property for weeds. And I did that, one, to appease myself because I was turning the corner, not seeing the tall weeds and being mad at my inspector and driving all the way back here and opening it up only to find out they had a case open. And so I was going, well, there's no reason to be mad at the inspector. And then I was going, well, you know what? This is actually a good thing, and it's a good thing for you because you can then look, and if you see a lime green flag, the city's actually cited the property and that we've got it cited.
Okay.
So we've done that as well just to help notify anybody in the community that wants to see it. I forgot, I'm the one with the PowerPoint.
One thing before we move on.
Sure.
And looking at this letter, me and you had talked about maybe putting that in red. I know it's in black bold, and we talked about that. I think that might be a good idea now that I see what you're talking about.
Yeah, I don't see
I don't know what you guys' opinions on that, because some people say they don't see it. I just know from talking to code, I can say, did you get a letter?
I think that's the kind of thing I expected that we would talk about when we kind of got this overview and then put it down to issues, because we all have probably gotten feedback from people.
Okay, we can
and
do
so on.
that, just for that. Okay.
And we absolutely know things like that probably would make, I don't know, it can't hurt. It's just a little, it can only help. So
I just get so many complaints, like I don't know who to contact, but now that I look at the letter, I can be able to guide them through
sure,
that.
I mean, and the inspector's name's on it, the inspector's phone number's on the letter.
I see that.
And that's just the weed one. So when we're sending housing ones, we're sending resource information with the housing information. And when we're doing the team up to cleanup, we're actually sending a cover letter explaining the team up to cleanup, what we're doing in the neighborhood, who's doing what, so that they understand what's going on.
Okay.
So we're trying the best we can to communicate with them, so when they go, I don't know, we're going, and we're knocking on doors too.
Okay.
So,
I think as
I'm sorry.
Sasha suggested, when we break these down, then when they know what we're going to focus on, they can bring samples of things like that
Okay.
on that day.
Thank you. Mike, you mentioned you're kind of backlogged on the abatement part of it right now. And I guess my question is there any kind of a preference given to certain types of properties, commercial over residential or like a large acreage over a little yard or anything like that? I mean, the severity of...
No, there is no preference. It's been first come, first serve of what we said it. There's been a few that I've made a phone call and said, look, put them at the front of the list because they're sitting right at a main intersection and it's growing really tall and the Fiesta's coming in. Get this thing mowed before people are driving over the bridge or whatever. But we're only talking about a handful of those when they're really ugly, or that 19 phone calls come in because of X and X and X. And we're going, look, we're spending more time answering the phone calls than we would. Let's just get it mowed and we can cut out 20 phone calls in the next 4 days. So we're not putting any preference, especially on the enforcement portion of it. We're not going out and intentionally citing commercial properties, or we're not intentionally. One of the things I do to start the year, though, I tell them to hit primary streets first. Mm-hmm. I go, Topeka, Kansas, 21st have to be the ones you start with, and then work into the neighborhoods after that, because those are our gateways into our community, and that's what people see. And stay on the main streets frequently. If you see something in violation on Kansas Avenue, get it cited. Don't say, hey, I'm going to another call, stop and get it cited. You'll see a lot of those lime green flags on Washburn and Kansas Avenue. For those two, for some reason, every time I go down, I'm going, there's another flag. So I do ask them to pay attention to the primary streets, but there's nothing where we're focusing on something specific.
Okay, thanks.
Just
Okay. Yeah, I really don't care when we address it. I just want to address it, make sure it gets addressed, all the letters and stuff. Okay, let's continue on then.
Okay, and then I'll move right through the weeds because we've already talked about why it's important, and it's got, Then we also do inoperable vehicles, and our standards and measurements of the car is legal to drive on the city street with flat tires, missing or broken windshields, up on jacks, missing front end or engines, severe body damage, and also unlicensed vehicles. One of the basic ways, if you can't legally drive it on the street, then we'd be citing it for an inoperable vehicle. Just because it hasn't been driven for a long time doesn't mean it's inoperable. There are cars all over the city that haven't even come off a driveway in 5 years, but they're tagged, they're registered, and they're operable. And we have to respect those people's rights to have those vehicles, and we won't cite those. We go round and round with the neighbors and go, I haven't seen that vehicle. Go make them start the car. I can't make the people start the car. Sometimes we'll ask them, go, you mind starting it and showing us that it runs? But I don't want to be harassing somebody just because a neighbor doesn't like that they got a Jeep or something, you know? So that's a tough one. But just because it's not been moved doesn't mean it's inoperable. But these are the ones that are easy targets for us, and we have these show up every single week. We have hundreds of warrants every year that we're towing these vehicles off the properties. We try to work with the people. A lot of the inspectors will work up the case, we'll send the letter, and then right before the warrant hits, so we try to do the warrants on vehicles Thursday and Friday, but they can do them on Tuesday or Wednesday, depending on how busy they are. They'll leave a door hanger on the car saying, I'm coming to tow your car. And any car that we don't have to tow saves us time, because that's an hour and a half of calling for the tow truck, waiting on the tow truck, hooking it up. So you can imagine when we're doing all these, the time suck that takes to tow a vehicle. And so anyone that we don't have to tow, we don't want to tow, and we're trying to give everybody the opportunity not to. Also, the impound lot calls us every few months and asks us to slow down, that we're towing too many cars. They've never seen so many cars come from code enforcement before. We're filling their lot too full that they have to make room for their impound lot auction. So they go, is there any possible way you can not tow cars for this week? And my answer to them is no, because I've had a judge sign the warrants. I'm not going to tell the judge, well, they're full. The judge really doesn't care. He said, look, I took the time to sign these warrants. You're going to serve them. But I work as hard as I can with the impound lot. And if we have something big, like we tow buses and RVs at times, we call them in advance. We'll call them on Monday and say, look, we got an RV coming on Friday, so that they can make room and they can figure it out. We also do no tags and expired tags. One of the biggest ones that we take phone calls from, and we go back and forth with the community, and then we've sat down with the police department, the city manager, and legal, is cars parked on unimproved surfaces. We're a department of compliance, so we give them X amount of days to comply. So any vehicle that's parked on that unimproved surface that removes itself from the unimproved surface then becomes in compliance. In our case, it's closed. We don't issue citations. I know that we issued citations, I'm going to say 10 years ago when we were under the police department, and Chief Miller gave code enforcement the authority to write tickets, and Chief Miller quickly took the authority back from code enforcement. I don't remember or know why. I was there at the time, but they didn't. I also don't want to be the department that's writing tickets. I got 8 inspectors, 6, and to be stopping and writing tickets and then having to go to court over those tickets, I'm already 170 cases behind on weeds. I just don't have the manpower to be doing that. And then any vehicle that pulls up and parks on that property after 4:30 in the afternoon, we're not citing. So it would be setting us up for failure if it becomes our responsibility, because they can show up at 6 o'clock and they can leave at 8 in the morning, and all the neighbors look and say, see, code enforcement doesn't cite those. Well, that happens every single day. Everybody who works during the day that parks in their front yard isn't there while we're there. So that's where we went back and forth and we talked about it, and I understand that our name is in that code, but we don't issue tickets. So that's why we're not doing that, because we would give them 10 days to comply. They're in compliance every single day that they take that car off the property. Graffiti, we've done a really good job on graffiti. If you drive around this city, there's not a lot of graffiti in this city. I would compare our city almost to any city. We can get it off within 24 hours with a consent. We keep the consents on file. Anytime somebody's in violation, let me correct that. Anytime somebody puts graffiti on another person's property, we contact that property owner. We ask them if they will allow us to come on their property and paint it. If they let us go on the property, we'll do it for free. We don't bill them for this one, and the whole intent is get graffiti off as fast as possible. We keep that consent on file, so as soon as it shows up at these properties, we can get it off. If it's a new property, we'll then send the consent out, and that one can actually drag on if the people elect not to do it, and it would drag on the whole process of due process and notification. But we had a lot of them on file, and so we're able to take care of the graffiti pretty fast. We also do our housing violations, which are primarily exterior, which are housing numbers, weather-tight conditions, which are doors, windows, walls, and roofs. The walls are usually your peeling paint and the paint conditions that are going on it, and also structurally sound, like the roofs, the stairs, and the porches. We also do fire damage properties, which often lead to unsafe structures, and we'll talk about unsafe structures in a moment, but that's where our fires go. And if we ignore our houses that are falling apart, you can just see that house there. It was already bad. And when it didn't get addressed, you can see that it's a whole lot worse. So we have to address these deteriorating structures immediately, or as fast as we can. And we deal with them on siding, windows, and weather tight, and doors. I pulled these pictures out of our thing, and I was going, I don't have a lot of houses like this anymore. I'd like to get some better pictures up there, but they're the pictures that I had on file when I pulled it up. So those are the ones you get. Roofs and gutters. Broken windows. And on housing cases, when they elect not to comply, these go to the municipal court, and they go in front of the court. We are willing to work with anybody who wants to take diligent effort, and they want to make an effort to improve their house or fix their house. We will work with them. We give pretty much a standard of 60 days to make your repairs, but I realize 60 days could be short if your house looked anything like the houses that I just pulled up on the pictures. But if you are actually making the repairs and you showing me you fixed the windows, we'll work with you, and we won't send it to court as long as you are making significant progress. We also deal with accessory structures like your sheds and your fences. Housing interior, they're a lot tougher for us. We deal with hoarders, and then we deal with tenants that call us for their insufficient plumbing, leaking ceilings, windows, doors, windows that don't lock, and no water and no electricity. We give a much shorter time period if it's an interior thing like a leaking roof, like 3 days. Tell a landlord, you got to get it fixed. But we don't have a lot of tenants calling us, but we try to reassure them when they do call us. We'll provide them all the protection they have, and we tell them about their rights and that a landlord can't retaliate against them, and we will assist them if a landlord does retaliate against them and get them hooked up with the police department to file a report. Hoarders are difficult because they don't let you inside their house, and if you do get inside, you got to get back inside, and you got to get a warrant on the second one around, because they're not going to let you back in the second time because they know you're going to do it. We're probably going to do our first hoarder case is coming up, and we're trying to decide how to handle it. Our abatement crew's not trained to go in there and do that, so we may have to hire an outside company to go in and clean this house. And it'll be a unique situation for us, because we want to make sure to clean the sanitation, not take the man's stuff. So the only thing we're going to be taking is his waste and his filth that he's accumulated. So it'll be a unique situation for us, but we're in contact with Adult Protective Services too. And the last couple hoarders, Adult Protective Services is taking care of the situation.
I think so.
Yeah.
Is this a homeowner or a renter?
Homeowner. Homeowner with family too. So the family says it's just a little messy. It's a lot more than messy.
So it is elderly?
Yeah, yes it is. It's elderly VA, and so the VA is involved, and so is Adult Protective Services, and we're waiting to see what they do. If they take care of it, then that's terrific. Yeah. If they don't, then we're going to find out what we have to do. But it'll be a unique situation for us, because we got to make sure that we only take the sanitation portion of that hoarding.
And that's good that you say that, because the state has money. They have that. If I could be of assistance to you, I surely would welcome that, to talk to Becky and Pam. Because it was it's working there. With the Adult Protection Services, it was amazing that we just don't have that connection, and so let's make that connection, and let's start if we haven't, because they know how to deal with it
Sure. I know that they created a hoarding task force that came and gone.
Yep.
And so the last time they
Yeah.
said, we want to start it again, we said, we're the first one on your team, and it just never developed. Because we realized we're going to have to be. It's some way.
But there was discussion of, I remember there was discussion with, and I don't know if it was Habitat or there was a discussion with another entity. I'd have to go back and see what I could find out because that was something that was brought to the table that's much needed that has kind of fizzled away.
Yes, it has.
Oh, I was frontline involved in the commitment to reconstitute it 18 months ago.
How about, yeah,
2
okay,
years.
yeah.
And, PD took the lead and called people, but then nothing happened, and I wasn't sure why. There was some debate about who should be in the lead, but at that time, the PD thought it through and said, it should be us. So,
I don't know who should be in the lead.
understood.
It's a mental health issue. So.
Sometimes other people can work this out. This is really great overview and discussion, I would say, because the networking about resources, I think is part, just to lay it out. I mean, part of the discussion we can have in a lot of these things is that just because, we wrote the code to say that these things are wrong and people need to take care of them, the code does not require us to abate. And so that's a choice, that's an administrative choice that we can or don't have to make. So
Correct.
and
that can be tough because I don't want to let somebody down.
Exactly, but we're not their parents, and
Right.
we're not responsible for everybody's personal health and safety.
No,
We're not.
you're absolutely right. But I want to find the resources if I can find
Exactly.
the resources
Exactly.
for them. And so that's what we've been doing. We're reaching out to everybody that we can even imagine and saying, look, we need to find help for these people, as opposed to enforcement. Enforcement's not what we want to do. We want to solve
Right.
the problem
Right.
without having to take government action.
Well, and I don't know if Chairwoman Ortiz shared the sample worksheets that I sent her, but I think with each of these, once we break this into sections to list what the policy is, what the administrative stuff is, or interpretations, if there are some that, particularly ones that are in question, but then included in that list is who are our partners, who are the community resources that we network with, whether it's police department when it comes to cars on unimproved surfaces where there needs to be a tag team all the time, but also things like the abatement or working with hoarders, the task forces and so
Sure.
on. This will be good.
Yeah, I think that would be a good thing. I'm going to say, the firefighters came to me one time. They were in Jefferson Square, and they came to me because they had to keep going to this house, and they'd have to go through the back door. And they finally called me and said, this is your district. I don't know if you know these people, but when we go through, and of course they got all their gear on, they're knocking crap off left and right, and it's just terrible going through the back door, through the kitchen, trying to get to the husband. Anyway, I said, no, but I will figure it out. So what I did was I put a filler out there. Monique Laudet knew him from church, and their church came, bought a big dumpster, and was able to go in and talk to the woman with our fire department and say, this is really not a good, not a good place, and it's a fire hazard, and we don't want to fine you. And we got them taken care of. So I think just sometimes that
Absolutely.
discussion, but I mean, that's how bad it was. They're like, we're knocking stuff up, on the stove, everywhere. It was just everywhere. And so they were very instrumental in doing that.
And our relationship with the fire department is getting better and better. Those conversations are going, and I'll get there a little bit too, further down here, the things that we want to put together with them to protect their safety and law enforcement safety, the things that the three of us can do together.
That's right. That's
We
right.
had a death on West 8th Street a couple years ago now, and that wasn't that the place caught on fire, but it was a hoarding situation, and that girl was upstairs, and it was hot because of all the stuff on fire.
Right.
That's why.
So one of the ones we have biggest is no water and no electric. And we're coming across that a lot. The water we're finding automatically because we're a city water. So when our guys are doing their cases, they're checking the water file because that's where we can find out who owns the property. Then when we check the water, we find out they don't have water. So then we're doing a condemnation notice on it and telling them they either got to get water or get out. So we've done more in the last year and a half than they've ever done on that, where we're placarding the property and telling them they either got to get water or electric, get out. And that's tough when you're talking about people that financially can't pay for their water. But it's what we're dealing with. On unsafe structures, we're dealing with structurally unsound, unfit for human occupancy, insufficient plumbing, and usually that's because the plumbing pipes break, and vermin and rat infested. And we haven't had a ton of those, but they come up. Lax heat. Every winter we'll have a handful of them where they're heating with the oven. We'll notify the landlord, you're going to get this fixed tomorrow. And then we can also get a hold of, within our own department, we'll get a hold of Corey, and Corey can start finding them new housing if it doesn't get fixed. And we've done that a handful of times in the last couple of years. And that works really good. Then the leaking ceilings, windows, and doors, we give them 3 to 5 days. It depends on how bad. If it's just a little leak, no big deal. But there's times we walked in, there's a shower in the house, and there's been a shower for a month. And then no water and electric. And then we'll place a condemnation order on it, and we'll tell them it's condemned, and they got to get out if it doesn't get fixed. But if it's not the tenant's fault, we do what we can to find them alternative housing, and we've been successful with everybody that's been willing to work with us to find them alternative housing, because it's not their fault.
I have to commend you for having developed that, because that is a tough fence line to walk, and you seem to have done very.
It was one I was worried about too.
Yeah.
And then Corey just immediately goes, no, of course we can do that.
Well, but it is, I mean, having done tenant landlord for years as well as code related that had to do with homeowners as well, when they really, especially if they figured out how to work around it,
Yes.
to be just put on the street immediately.
Right.
Anyway, we'll get back to it, I'm sure, but you've done a good job.
Absolutely. And then we are also dealing with our dangerous and our unsafe structures with our special structures unit, and we're dealing with unfit for human habitation, structurally unsound, dilapidated, and deteriorating, and in disrepair, and major defects or life-threatening conditions, which would result in demolition. What's fantastic about this program, and it's working exactly how we want it. Last year, we didn't demo a lot. We only demoed 15. But owners demoed 15, and 30 people brought houses that we went after to demo back into compliance. So you add up, that's 60 houses that got addressed. And when you go back to 2017, the numbers were a lot higher. In 2015, when it was easy pickings, I think we demolished 37. And what's great is that people are challenging us now. When we're going after their houses, they're coming in for the hearings, and they're going, we don't want you to tear down the house, we want to fix the house. That's the game plan on this.
Idea.
We don't want vacant lots, we want houses fixed. So that's where we are. And as of today, or well, I guess the 10th, we've taken down 18 houses, and we will go through our budget. Last year, I was wondering if we'd get through our budget. I think it's just an ebb and flow of how many people challenge you and how long a case takes and everything. And this year we're through 18 and we're approaching our budget limits. So I think we're right on target of where we want to be, but this program's working great. And I would much rather see the rehabilitation by owner be up there in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, and thus demolish only the ones that have to be demolished. Simplified best case scenario when it comes to just due process and notification. Sanitation, if somebody doesn't comply, it takes 21 days from the day we open it to the day that we serve the warrant. That is a dramatic decrease from when we changed the code for notification process. We were at, I think, 40 days, and we cut it down to 21, and it would be shorter than 21, but when I'm running at 6 and 7 inspectors, there's many that come due for the warrant that we're pushing back because we just don't have the manpower to do the warrant. So we're at 21. Weeds is 14 days, although it's not 14 days right now because we're 160 some odd behind, but that's what it normally is, 14. Graffiti, we're doing it as fast as we can except on the weekends. And then inoperable, unlicensed vehicles is going to be the same thing with sanitation. It's the same process of notification. So it takes about the same amount of days. And then housing cases take 6 months to go through, and truthfully, they can take 2 or 3 years. When we can't locate the owner or the owner just doesn't show up to court. If an owner's not a criminal and they elect not to show up to court and they get a warrant for their arrest, the police aren't going after them for a warrant for a housing case, and they could have a warrant for years. And so that sits out there until they get picked up. There's some that when we figure it out and we go, hey, this one's kind of, we do call the police and say, you might want to go and knock on this guy's door and pick him up for his warrant. But yeah, if you don't have contact with the police and you have a warrant, you could go for years and years and years and never know that you have a warrant for your arrest. And demolitions take anywhere from 6 to 12 months. And then I don't know if everybody knows what an inspector really does. And when you're only talking about 8 inspectors, their days are completely filled. They start every Monday. We start with a warrant briefing, and we're doing 568 warrants so far this year, or an average of 18 per week. And with 8 inspectors, that's 3. So they got to go in and we do a warrant briefing where we plan out the strategy for those warrants so that we can all do them in order. Because we got till Friday. Once the judge signs them, we got till Friday evening to get them done. So we go in on Monday and we say, how are we going to do the warrants? How are we going to be the most efficient? How are we going to do it? When we do that, then they go out and they handle their see-click-fix complaints. And like I told you, I know about the 25 today just because I know about it. But that's how many of these inspectors are getting when they walk in. And just imagine, each inspection's taken 10 minutes just to initiate, plus the drive time. If you have that many, how long that would take in a given day. Plus they're handling their phone-in complaints and their follow-up complaints. Because once I do a complaint, remember I'm going back in 14 days to do a follow-up inspection. Or if it's a housing case, I'm going back. So they got all their follow-ups. Then they also have to submit their warrants to the judge. And then at the end of the day, follow up on their phone calls and emails. When I started, all I heard was that our guys don't call people back. Well, they better call people back. So they call people back. And then on Tuesday, they receive their warrants for the judge, and we begin the process of serving the warrants, handle their see-click fix, do their re-inspections, complaints, proactive, and follow up on their phone calls. Wednesday, it's almost the same thing, except for we also have to survey the properties that are going to docket. And docket's going to have 25 and sometimes 40 cases that show up. So the inspectors have to go out and they have to look at those houses to say if they're still worthy of docket or if the person's corrected the violation. If they corrected it, then we tell Coran, hey, everything's cool, you can dismiss this case, it's done. But so they have to go out and they have to do that. Plus then we have administrative hearings every other week that they have to attend, and then again follow up on their phone calls. Then on Thursday we have an all-staff meeting, and that all-staff meeting consists of training, consists of all the problems that we had during the week. We sit down and go, what did you face? If you had a problem, inspector, the other 6 or 7 inspectors have faced it similar. Let's talk it out. So we work about it. Every week we go over one SOP and we go over one city policy. I realize that the city policies are so many city policies, people don't know them. So we go over a city policy. If it's something from tobacco usage to sick time usage to whatever, we go over it so that all my employees know what the city's expectations and the policies are. So we do that every single week. We meet and we talk about all the issues that are going on or whatever the hot ticket items are. And then they have court docket on Thursdays, serve more warrants. They do follow up on their complaints and proactive. And then Friday's the first day that you can breathe, but you can't breathe because you got to finish your warrants, especially those vehicles. And then that's where you're trying to get your scorecard. And what a scorecard is, it told you what you had to do during the week. You're trying to get it at 0 so that you can go home for the week, and when you show back up on Monday, it's going to say 20. But so they're busting their heinies to make sure that their scorecard is at 0, and it's almost impossible to get it to 0 because calls are coming in as you're working. So that's what, they got a lot to do as an inspector. And when I've asked them, good enough is not good enough, you're going to do thorough and complete and consistent inspections. To do that takes a lot more time than just showing up and writing the case and driving off. They're also, we are not an adversarial group. We serve the people that we cite, not just the people we complain. So they go out to the people's house and they hold their hand. When they go, I don't understand what you want me to clean up, my inspectors will go out there and walk around and show them everything they had. They didn't do that before. They said, you should know, read the code. The code tells you what you're supposed to clean up. But what we found by doing this is we get more cooperation, less complaints, and we can get the job done better. But in return, they turn out a whole lot busier. Where we can go and some of the things we want to do, we do want to create a team with the police and the fire department to identify the vacant properties, evaluate those and get them properly secured, and make contact with the owner and have the owner sign a waiver form for law enforcement to enter that vacant property at any time. That doesn't mean for them to force a door open. That means when they find a door open that they can go through and have the support of the owners. Post the properties that are vacant to assist the police and fire. Also consider a campaign to place address markings on all properties within the city. Use the media and make this a positive PR campaign. This could be extremely positive to do, and it's super important for first responders. It's super important for you. If a first responder is showing up while you're having a heart attack or choking and they go to the house next door, that might cost you your life. And I know that for a fact. I've gone to the wrong address because you're looking going, I don't know if that's 816 or that's 816. Well, I'm at 812. So then I'm going over to 816 and they're having a heart attack or their baby can't breathe. It is really important. And then we will be proposing a neglected, vacant, or foreclosed property registration in the near future, sitting down and talking with you guys. And that'll probably be the biggest project that we have going. And then if we want, we can talk about the abatement process, or if you feel that we've been rolling along, we can always address it later. That's up to you if you want me to keep going.
Let's finish, I mean,
If he's got a meeting at 4, you have to realize he's gonna bail.
It's just across the street though, but
what are you saying?
I got another 5 minutes or so.
You got another 5 minutes? You want to finish
I
this?
can rattle it in 5.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So we did the rapid process improvement, which we talked to you all, I don't remember what month that was, but April, that we went through and we looked at the abatement process for sanitation. We picked sanitation because it's the most lengthy and it fit in the weeds. It fit our vehicles. Everything fit within sanitation. So if we do sanitation, everything will naturally go with the other ones. So that's what we did on that. We wanted to make it as efficient and effective as possible, which we did, and we were able to knock out 21 of the 157 steps. What we abate for, which we talked earlier, was sanitation, weeds, vehicle, and graffiti. And steps leading to abatement, is the inspection, notification. We've provided opportunity for a hearing if somebody believes we interpreted the code incorrectly. We had re-inspect, warrant application, warrant approval, service of the warrant. Then the abatement team and the inspectors serve the warrant, and then the disposal of the abated items and the documentation. Using the inmate crews has been critical in this. If we lost the inmate crews when we're serving 500 and some odd warrants, we couldn't do the job we have with 2 abatement crew members. It would be impossible. They're using 40-yard roll-offs. They're using backhoes to clean this stuff up. This is huge that we have the support that we do. We could use more abatement crew members. You know, I've been asked, what could you use? I'd love to have more inspectors. But if I have more inspectors, I need more admin staff. If I have more admin staff, we need more court people. It's an ongoing thing that would turn ugly. I can tell you that I could use more abatement crew people to get this cleaned up because we're sitting there chasing what the inspectors are doing. Honest sanitation, an owner's given 13 days to clean the violation. State law says they have 10 days to clean it. We marked it as 13 days because we gave 3 days for the mailing. On the 14th day or near it, we go back out and we re-inspect. Again, we send that both first class and certified letter so that we know that they got something. If property is still in violation or warrants applied for, the inspector will work with owners to who make a diligent effort to address the issue. On a lot of these sanitation, they're huge. And the guy goes, look, I'm alone. I can't do this in 10 days. And we go, all right, well, tell you what, do 2-3 truckloads, let us come look. And if he does 2-3 truckloads a week until he gets it clean, we'll let him do it. What happens a lot of times, they do 2-3 truckloads and then they bring 2 truckloads. And we go ahead and serve the warrant. But we're willing to work with them. If we can work with them and get them to do it, that's the first choice before we serve the warrant. We submit the warrants on Monday, get them back on Tuesday, and then they have 96 hours to serve the warrant. Weeds is a little different. We give them 10 days to correct the violation. We don't have to give them that many. I think we only have to give them, I want to say 3, but we gave them 7 and realized that it takes a while for that letter to get to them because it goes to Kansas City and then it comes back here. And that's only a first-class letter. That's not a certified letter, as state law said that we could do. So we give them 10 days to give them a little bit of time for the mailing. On the 11th or near the 11th day, we go out for inspection. And if they're still in violation, we notify the mow crew. If the mow crew is notified, it's already $106.65. So if the mow crew mows, then it goes up over $250, and it can go higher depending on the size of the property. Like a big vacant lot would go higher. We only request warrants on weeds when there's no trespassing signs or we're locked out of the property. And again, we'll work with an owner on weeds, but not very long. And we can't give them, some people go, I need 3 weeks. And we're going, oh, no, man, we can't do that, but we can give you through the weekend, or we can give you another 5 days or whatever. But we'll work with them if they say that I really will do it. And we briefly talked about only one notice per calendar year to prevent intentional delays in mowing, and also that's what state law says we can do. Inoperable vehicles, just to speed it up, is exactly the same thing as the sanitation on how we handle it. The inspectors do the best they can to get people to move their vehicles or get them registered the best they can. And we try not to tow them, but we'll tow them if they don't want to get them legal. And then graffiti, we knock out as fast as we can. It's free with a consent. We use a soda blaster on anything that's cement that hasn't already been painted over. And then we paint an ugly gray on the other ones. We're definitely not artists or housing contractors when we paint this graffiti, but you can paint over that after we paint over it too. But at least it gets the graffiti off of your property. And then if not, then we got to go to that whole process of notifying you and giving you the 13 days, and on the 14th day reinspect. And if we do it, then we then bill you. But we don't do very many of those. Most people agree to paint it, or most people get it painted. I can't even remember the last time that we billed somebody for graffiti. I'm sure it was last week, but I don't remember. So it's not a lot of them. And then some of the efforts we've done to reduce abatements and assist the public, we worked with the behavioral insight teams from What Works Cities, and we crafted a new letter that the whole intent of the letter was to get voluntary compliance. And they did a whole study, and we sent them all the violations and who complied and who didn't. And it came out to the exact same amount of people voluntarily complied under their letter versus our letter. So it didn't make a difference. I liked the wording in their letter better, but it didn't make a difference. I sent out the postcards for the weeds this year, trying to get people to do it. We used door hangers as the warrant approaches. We placed the inspector's name and phone number on the violation notice. Inspectors are willing to meet with the property owners at property to walk through the issues. I can tell you that was not happening when I came on because we were too busy and we didn't have time, was what I was told. I thought that was crazy because we can save time by going out and meeting with the people and getting the thing take. We put our SOPs as online as well as the IPMC, and there's an online action center where you can look up the code violations on this. When we go to our community meetings, which we've gone well over 100 meetings every year, we tell them about the online action center, and we tell them about what we've done in the areas. We're doing educational videos with Channel 4 and Facebook Live and Habitat for Humanity every month. I think it's the first Tuesday of every month I go do one with Habitat for Humanity, and we talk about windows, or we talk about peeling paint, or we do whatever. I think this one's coming up next week is going to be condemnations, what that means. We've had 3 team up to clean up events, and Ward Mead's going to be our 4th, and during that time we do walk and talks, and we go walk and talk to the neighbors about it, but we include not just our department, the fire department's out there, the police department's out there, and any other city department goes and walks the neighborhoods to talk to them about those problems. And that's just some of the stuff we've done to try to reduce the abatements and assist the public.
Very last one. Okay.
So that's wrapping her up.
Can I have a
Okay.
quick question real quick?
Huh?
Can I ask a question?
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you. Mike, you mentioned the jail crews are a valuable part of what you guys do. Had 2 questions, I guess. Have there been any problems with them at all? Like anybody trying to escape or fights or anything like
They
that?
have walkaways occasionally, but these are low-risk inmates, so I don't want to say, yes, the jail cares greatly that they walk away, but their safety concerns very minimal.
Okay.
You know, they just reevaluate who they selected. And it's kind of stupid to walk away from that because they're going to be getting out anyway.
Yeah, they're
Leave
going on
you.
the last bird.
Okay, so the, oh, right,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, they're not a big crime spree. They're appreciative.
I was hoping that's what you would say.
Yeah.
It does happen from time to time, but rarely. County does a great job selecting the inmates that get to participate, and they have very experienced crew leaders that are out of the
Okay, and then also kind of to piggyback on that, have you had any experience with people on the inmate crews that were so good you hired them on when they got out?
I have not had that, no.
Okay.
I can tell you, though, that the inmates have been so appreciative to do the job and get out of the jail. And then what I have done, I spent my own money when they've had one of the big roll-offs and bought them pizza. And then they're besides themselves. They're going, oh my God, this is the best meal we've had in weeks or whatever. So they're really happy to do it, and they work hard. I mean,
Yep.
they bust their butts, and if
Yep.
they don't, then their crew leader says, you're not coming out tomorrow. And they work together too. And these are guys that, even when I worked the street as an officer, didn't quite get along when they were out on the street and not in jail. But then when they're in jail, they're going, well, let's work together to get this done and let's do it. And you can see pride in the inmates of what they're doing. So they've been a fantastic resource. And even weed mowing, they do a great job on the weeds for me, and they get that knocked down and are conscientious of throwing the rocks out into the street, or, they don't blow grass. I get these phone calls about how my crew, and they're not my crew, but the inmate crew blew the grass in the street. I go, absolutely did not. I can tell you that's going to be somebody else that guy contracted, because they don't blow it into the street. They know all these things because they've been doing it over and over. Because I'm looking at ways to, that 170 that I'm backed up on, and I go, well, do we hire mowing contractors? I don't know what to do to get that 170 knocked off, but I got to come up with a solution. As soon as I hire mowing contractors, that phone call that says they blew it out into the street, I'll be dealing with.
Aaron, and I might say this, when I was involved in this from the first, and even with Mayor Button, I talked to him briefly, we've kind of got all the nicks out. We did have some problems at first, and then we realized that we did have to really keep, because I think we had a officer that went out that wasn't really a security officer that knew him, and we were having some issues. And then, so now these are officers from the jail.
Yeah, the ones that I mainly deal with are the Shawnee County Jail, and they're top-notch guys.
And so they know the people, because like we had some, he's letting them go smoke and not really, kind of trusting them too much, So we've kind of really gotten through that, Can it happen? Yeah. Most of these people are going home. They're not gonna mess that up.
Good.
The thing that I can appreciate about it is I worked in child support at that particular time, is that they were actually getting a little bit of money, and so they were paying back into some of their dues and stuff like that. So they learn a trade when they get out. They go to Schindel, they go to different companies, and they do a fabulous job. So I don't think we do enough with them. I'm just saying, when you go to your bigger cities and you see that. So, but I'm happy, and I will always support them. I think we get a big bang for our money.
We get a huge bang, and I've asked for more. And Brian Cole said, the only reason you're not, I don't have the staff. He goes, the next crew's going to me. He goes, I need a crew.
Yeah.
And because we could use, if I had another one, we could knock out the weeds.
Yeah.
But they don't have the jailer to pay to do that.
Right.
Because they can't hire enough jailers at the time.
Right.
So,
And if you ever seen them work on a yard, they are there so quick and so fast, you'd be like,
It's like a Chinese fire
it
drill.
is.
You pull up with the van and everybody piles out and grabs
They
their own.
do. They all have their own area. They know where they're going. You're just like, what the heck just happened there?
Yep.
And it's amazing. It's amazing. Do you need to leave? Do you have any more questions before you leave?
I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you.
You might give me some feedback on where you see you want to start, or I kind of thought this was a good start for us to go right down the line of what you just presented. But that's me speaking. I don't know how you guys feel about that.
That's great.
Since kind of threw it all out there. Karen, do you have any?
Well, I haven't. I just saw this. So you know that I've tried to figure out how it could be sorted, and it seems like this is sorted in a very logical way. I just know that if we can take it in sections, and I'm happy to look at this again and look at the list I had, because I might have forgotten something too.
And I did give Sasha your list that you sent me. I thought it was a very good outline, but I think this is broke down pretty good.
Yeah, I think
I do
it's great.
too. And so.
Thank you.
And they're similar, I think. So.
Sure.
But I think there are enough issues that get raised that for us to break this into pieces and
Thanks,
then
Erin.
take sessions similar to this one, just on one section at a time, will allow the questions.
So I just want to make sure that I understand the direction. You want us to come prepared to the next although the very next public health and safety meeting, just for anybody that might be watching, is not about this topic. It's going to be about rescue mission, camping, and homeless issues. So the one after that, you want us to come prepared for a discussion on, is the intent to go through every section of the code?
That's what I thought. I mean, not reading the code per se, but kind of like the way you broke this up, or I think it could be done so there's not like 20.
I do too, Sasha. I think this is, like if we go to page 8, sanitary weeds, inoperable vehicles, graffiti, housing, I think that right there would be maybe a meeting, or I don't know, would it be 2 meetings?
Well, I think in part it would depend on how much we get from you guys on the front side, because if we are just coming to a meeting and kind of being cold called, so to speak, on what the concerns are, then we're not going to be prepared for the discussion. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, we can totally follow
Well, like this
this as an
right.
outline of topics.
This sanitation violation includes tires, trash, debris. If we can just focus on maybe these, or is this just one? Is this one?
This is an example of the types of violations that they are going to write under a sanitation. This is one type of case, I'm sorry.
Right.
Madam Chair, yes, this is one type of case. Sanitation is a case type.
Let's take the first 3, and if we don't get to it, we don't get to it. We'll just continue it. But let's do that in that order. Sanitation, weeds, inoperable vehicles, graffiti, housing, and unsafe structures. I think that's a good start. Karen, would you agree on page 8?
So sanitation, weeds, and inoperable vehicles are the grouping for the next meeting that we'll meet to talk about this. And then we'll group graffiti, housing, and unsafe structures together. Is that, am I understanding correctly?
And I don't know, could we get all that in our next meeting? I don't
I
know.
think what you get is that the sanitations, weeds, inoperable vehicles, and graffiti, as Mike walked through it, are handled in a very similar way, but they are different because there's different partners, like with vehicles and so on. So some might go faster than others.
Right.
So I think if you are talking about, I think this order could be the order to go through them. I'm looking at my list real fast, and so sanitation would be the vegetation and the junk, anything else, would be the junk, what I call junk. Vegetation, housing. I mean, I had split housing into exterior and interior a lot because you handle them differently right now. And each one has a fair amount to it. The write-ups and the case management that I had on my list could be addressed each time with each of those subject matters, so it doesn't necessarily need a separate session, I guess, unless it's
The what?
just... Oh, the whole issues about write-ups, case management, warrants, access to property, all the things that are, Mike touched on them as he went through the
Today.
topics rather than as just one
But I
subject.
think if there's a question, we could pop it in there if there is a question, but I think
And same thing with abatement. I'm just looking at my list, abatement strategies and timelines you're including in each of those subject sections, which I think is fine. Probably whether you want to separate housing into exterior and interior as we flow through it, the rest of it would work.
So since Mike's given you guys an overview of the process for each one of these case types, what is it that you want us to present on?
Well, me speaking, I think like let's break it down and like weeds. Let's break that down. Okay. what does that consist of? Be able to break it down, okay? The complaints, I'm just using that as an example. I got a complaint from a lady at work that's very upset because half of her grass was cut and the other half wasn't cut. But we cited her for the grass that wasn't cut, you know? And so I guess we just need to know the process. It all has to be cut or we're gonna cite you for that. Does that make sense? That's what I'm looking at. When I look through these to be able to better serve my constituents with answers as opposed to, you know, I don't know. I'm assuming that's what it entailed, but I don't know. So why would she have half of her grass cut?
We'd have to have the address. We could look it up.
No, and I know, but I'm just saying, why
Like
would
she
she
paid
have?
someone to cut half the grass and not the other?
I don't know.
The mower might have broken. That's a good
Then there's the
point.
people who call and say, well, they didn't trim.
I mean, you
When
know,
we mow.
so I guess, so for us to go through each of these and talk about these and be able to answer some of those things or, you know.
So Mike could give you kind of an overview of, let's take sanitation, just
Yeah.
for the sake of conversation. When they pull up to a property, here's what they're looking for.
Right,
Here's what they're
right.
going to cite,
Right.
and then what that process looks like.
Right.
Once it's started, is that?
I think in effect, a review, a recap of what by section you presented today, and then, yeah, a little more detail. And then also, and Mike did that in the presentation today, where there are issues, where you know that there have been disagreements about how to read the policy or what that administrative procedure is, to go ahead. But then there would be some homework on our part, I think, to know that that's the subject that's coming up and be prepared with the issues that our
Any
constituents have
or,
raised
yeah,
to us.
to bring to you.
Yeah.
And you might not be able to answer it that day. We can try to get it to you, and if we can't, well, then we'll just come back with a overview recap or something.
Right.
And we will need your
Right.
questions or concerns in advance. And I say that because I can tell you
Right.
that we spent 18 months with Mary Feeney and the legal department combing through the IPMC, and the changes that staff desired, you guys, they were presented to you. And we worked with you for, I believe, 4 months, and those were approved. So staff doesn't feel that there's any need to make any further revisions to the IPMC as it was adopted and recently amended.
And I'm not saying that there needs to be revisions. We're just saying we need to get a better understanding. So maybe, and you guys need to better understand us. So if we feel, well, maybe this does need to be revised. I mean, like this letter, I've never seen this letter before, Sasha. So when people are saying there's nothing on here and telling me who
That means
to
that
contact or nothing,
you've always
like,
kept your grass mowed. That means you've always kept your grass mowed.
absolutely, I'm gonna get me a book. I'm gonna have a book. But I'm
Yeah.
just saying, so we
I got
get a
you.
better understanding, so we can help you guys as well. You know what I'm saying? Now, having said that, I've spent 15 years with Mary Feeney, and I enjoy it. Mary's gonna tell me not what I want to hear, but what I gotta hear. So,
And that's absolutely fine. Anytime that you get a question from a constituent and you don't know the answer, please call me. Please go, hey, that half grass, and I would tell you, I go, well, you gotta mow your whole grass. In that letter, it says your entire property.
and see, now that's
Yeah.
helpful. That's
Yeah.
helpful because
And those are things we had to hash out, because when I first got here, the
Right.
policy when I first walked
Right.
in as an inspector was they just wrote the code. And so people were just mowing their front yard. And then I'm looking, I go, man, if I own this property, I'm confused.
Yeah.
So I said, no, you're gonna put the alley, the easement, because we were finding, you'd tell them to mow the whole property and they would leave the
Right.
easement.
And that's what I look in this conversation with you guys is what we're hearing, and that you guys might be missing or not missing, or to help us. There's no way I could look at this and say, I mean, to hear I got a letter and I don't know who to contact. I couldn't even believe that. I mean, but again, I have not seen the
Right.
letter.
But-
You know.
Plus, I make myself available. I probably talk to 15 people a day or more. Some of them like to talk a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to explain it and go into great detail. And I provide them, when they go, I think you're full of it, I send them the pictures of their property and I go, now argue with me. You're looking at these pictures with me.
Right.
And they go, well, okay, I understand what you're talking about. Because we want them to, just like you're saying, it's very frustrating. I put myself in the shoes of the constituent
Yeah.
and how I would feel if I got that letter or if I didn't understand it. And so when I speak to them, and what I tell almost every Thursday when we're having the meeting, I go, please treat these people the way you wish your mother was treated if she received a violation. I hope you like your mom, but that's what I mean by it. And I go, if your mom came to you and told you the story, are you that guy? Or did you do a good job?
Yeah.
And that's why I go, you have to make sure that you're treating these people as valued people in our community, because they are valued and they matter. And the inspectors believe it. I don't have any adversarial inspectors. I have people that actually are believing in the job they're doing now. I can't say that I could say that a few years ago. I can say that they believe that they're actually making an impact, a slow, drawn-out impact, but an impact.
And something that I've been thinking about, personally myself, just kind of really thinking about this, is I would like to see us have maybe an email with an extension email that when they ask for an extension, I mean, you know, that they can email that one. And I don't know if it's possible, you know, kind of did that with community policing. When you had your summit, and the one thing that I heard is, I never know who my community officer is. And so I get that a lot. Who's my community officer? And I'm like, oh, I don't know. So what we did was we put a little magnet together, and it had community policing, I think at Topeka.org or whatever it is. And so people can email that and say, I live at 1908, blah, 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 and I need to get a hold of my community officer. So that email goes directly to all the community police officers and to their supervisors. So I don't have to worry about your changing positions, and I don't have to worry about you went on vacation, because now your supervisor, he gets it, so he knows who to direct it to. And since it goes to all of them, she's covering for me, so she's going to see it, so they're going to pick up that phone. And they just were so helpful, and we just gave that out all the time. And I don't know, like in code, if we could, you know, do that, because that's the calls I get is like, I need an extension. I can't do this. And I'm like, find your letter, call this, or call this number.
We do want to hold a conversation with them. We don't and I'm actually hearing your conversation about the email and a chain, because one of the things is an inspector's got another inspector to look out after them if they take the day off or whatever, but they don't get their email. So I'm following you where, but
yeah, just some of that conversation on how we can help.
But we do want to talk to you, because everybody's going to ask for an extension.
Yeah,
I need an extension. You know, I need to hold that deep conversation, because these people will ask for extensions for no valid reason.
I'm not saying they get it just because they email it in. I'm saying it'd be nice to make that contact.
I hear what you're saying. I like that.
Yeah. So they get so they know, okay, I can request that, you know, because I get people that ask me to do it, and I'm like, hey, I need you to call this or call Liz, and Liz will give you the number or whatever.
Sure.
Just to do that, because I tell them we want to work with them.
Absolutely, we do.
So I want to, if I could, are we square on that then?
Well, what I
Sasha?
think I'm hearing is if we're going to go through in this order, and we're not going, I'm running with this a little bit, and we're not going to focus on this at our September meeting, is that we could internally set ourselves a deadline of the September meeting to have turned in all the questions and issues to staff, so that about sanitation and probably weeds, you know, the first take 2 or 3 at a time, and set ourselves a deadline that's 30 days in advance of the date that we would have the meeting on that subject to kind of leapfrog our way. Does it make sense? So that we've done our part. I also think we need to think about who the constituent groups are that might want to be engaged as we go through the issues. I know, for instance, that the Landlord Association has I think, taken a lot of pride in working with you and having some quality input on things. I see the Betty's here, but you know, to make sure they know what subject is rolling up too. So if they have some things to either get to us or to you beforehand, that they can, and if they don't, at least they show up and they've had an opportunity to be part of the conversation and to contribute at that time. You know, we've all got neighborhood people that have particular issues they're interested in that might want to come, and if we roll it up in particular order, then they
I
can
agree.
if they
This is
want.
where we're gonna start. We good, Sasha? We good, Mike?
The sooner you get me the stuff, the better. Because this is just like 3 days or 4 days, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, you gave me a
Well,
month.
this was
I'd love it.
awesome.
Yeah.
This
Yeah,
was really well
good.
done. And so I think you can use it again as we go through
Yeah,
the
very good.
steps.
I do want to take a few moments if we may. Pat, did you have something that you wanted to add?
Not right now, I will email
Okay.
you something.
And that's why we need that email, so we can get Pat that. Betty, do you have anything that you would like to add?
This was very interesting.
It's very interesting.
It was very, very interesting. So if I can come again and just listen, because I realize from this that we need to have you back again, because it's been a while.
Yeah, and I've told you, I'm happy to come anytime you want me.
And please make sure you sign the sign-up sheet so that Liz has your contact information. So when we have another meeting, she can email you or call you, however you want to be notified. And that way you can pass the word on. I think staff did a great job. Because I was kind of like, well, how are we going to get through this? Because I just don't want to duplicate, you know, and I know some things are kind of hard to put together, but you did a great job on this. Is there anything else? Do you have anything, Karen?
I don't think so.
Okay,
Took notes, but
I seen that. And Liz, I'll give you mine to get me a book, to start putting my book together. Anything else? No? If not, this meeting's adjourned. Thank you.